If you have ever known a pet dog or cat, you might have wondered, what are they thinking?
Do they know who I am?
Are they intelligent?
We are going to talk about the science behind our pets' thoughts. And for a fun contrast, we're also going to talk about otters. Let's start by talking about dogs. Dogs are descended from the gray wolf and have been selectively bred by humans to be the perfect four-legged companion to humans. Because of thousands of years of humans and dogs living side by side, as both evolved and adapted over time, dogs have developed a somewhat rare characteristic to understand and interact with humans. Scientists call this social cognition with humans. It is only in the last 30 years... It is only in the last 30 years or so that scientists have begun to take seriously the study of cognition, the thought processes and sensory experiences of dogs. Dogs are not born to automatically recognize people's behaviors, but like human babies, they quickly learn. One example of this recognition of human action is a common social cognition test, where the dog must choose the bowl of food that the experimenter is pointing to, rather than an alternative bowl that is available. Dogs quickly learn to follow the gesture and choose the bowl of food the human is pointing to. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, of course they do. Why do scientists need to tell us these things? But consider this. Most animals do not respond to the finger point like this without extensive training. Not even other primates, our closest animal kingdom relatives. Dogs can recognize human emotions and facial expressions as well. They can tell if you are paying attention to them. They are much more likely to sneak food away from a person who is not looking or has their eyes closed. Again, you might be saying, duh, of course they do. But no one has ever told dogs that human eyes, which don't look much like dog eyes, are used for seeing, and seeing is necessary to catch a naughty pet sneaking food. They learn these things by growing up with humans, and much like human children, they learn them quickly. Most animals aren't as good at learning from humans in this way. Another cognitive adaptation that makes dogs unusual in the animal kingdom, their ability to recognize and process human speech. Human brains have different areas for processing and understanding language separated from other sounds. This area is in the temporal lobe of the left hemisphere, the left side of the brain. It turns out that dog brains have a similarly placed region in their brains that responds to human language, which is distinct from normal sound processing. How do we know this? Scientists have put their well-behaved canine test subjects into a complicated machine called a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, or fMRI. This machine takes scans of the brain that look like slices, which light up in the areas of the brain that are most active over time. What scientists found is that the dog brains were active in the left hemisphere temporal lobe in response to the combination of human language and intonation, or how it was spoken, that dogs frequently hear. Those who know a dog might be familiar with the tone that accompanies the phrase, "good girl," when praising the dog. It turns out that this tone of voice, combined with certain words the dog is familiar with, are necessary to activate this language region. Many animals can learn to make an association between a particular sound stimulus and an expected action, which is called classical conditioning. But it is unusual and surprising for dog brains to have a language processing region that may be set up similarly to that of humans, and that this region is specific to human speech, not dog communication. They have a part of their brain that has been co-opted by people, and they don't seem to mind. Praise speech, the quintessential good dog expression that even the naughtiest of dogs deserve to hear on occasion, activates brain areas associated with reward in the same way that praising another person does. So science has found some pretty clear evidence of social cognition between dogs and humans. But what about their actual intelligence? Like in humans, intelligence is highly variable from dog to dog, and there are multiple components of it, and includes questions like, can they reason and problem solve? Can they adapt to new information? Can they learn new things? Scientists believe that, on average, a dog's intelligence is similar to that of a 2-year-old human. Some of the things that tell us about their intelligence are dogs' ability to deceive other dogs and humans, their limited ability to count numbers, sometimes up to 4 or 5, and their ability to learn problem-solving techniques from watching other dogs and humans perform them, a process called modeling. There are ways that you can test your own dog's intelligence, and we will demonstrate a few of them here. If you have a dog at home, we encourage you to try this as well. Just make sure to ask an adult first. One test that you can do is to place a towel over their head and see how long it takes for them to get out from under the towel. So I'm going to demonstrate this on Boo. Good girl, good girl. I'm going to see how long it takes for her to get out from underneath it. food. That was good. Smart girl. Good job. So yeah, feel free to try doing this with your dog at home with your parents' permission and see how smart your dog is.
And he's almost doing it. So close. Good boy, Henry. Good boy. Almost. Okay, well, he got it off enough to be satisfied.
Now we'll turn to talking about the world's other favorite pet, cats. Like dogs, cats have lived with humans for thousands of years, but they largely domesticated themselves over time by living around humans where they could be sure to catch a few rodents. This means that they were not selectively bred in quite the same way as dogs. As a result, we might not expect them to have the same type of social cognition that dogs have with humans. After all, the general cultural impression of cats is that they are aloof and independent, even towards their loving owners. Some scientists study cat cognition, but as you might imagine, cats don't always make cooperative test subjects. Unlike dogs and many other animals studied, it is difficult to convince a cat to participate in an activity if it is unwilling, which is why I do not have my cat here with me right now. She would not be a happy camper. Some studies have reported less than half of cats were willing to fully participate. We have learned some things by studying cats, and they can demonstrate social cognition that is in some ways similar to dogs. For example, cats can learn to respond to human facial expressions and gestures. Remember the finger point test on dogs? It turns out that cats are also able to easily learn what the finger point means and respond to it when they want to. Cats can tell when a human is paying attention to them, which, as we talked about earlier, is actually pretty unusual among non-human animals. They are also able to recognize certain speech of specific humans, but it is not known if these vocalizations are processed in a special language region the way that they are for dogs. An interesting trait of domesticated cats that shows their social cognitive adaptations is that domestic cats mostly seek out human interaction, much like dogs. This is especially strange because they are descended from solitary wild cats. In fact, repeated studies have shown that cats are more likely to choose social interaction with humans over food or toys. Of course, there is a lot of variability between cats, just as there are many differences between individual humans. But we can see that, like dogs, domestication has imbued cats with an unusual level of social understanding of and reliance on humans. What about cat problem solving and intelligence? Well, compared to dogs, cats have a more complex cerebral cortex, with almost twice as many neurons as dogs have. The cerebral cortex is where problem solving and decision making occurs in the brain, and the number of neurons indicates that cats may have increased reasoning capacities when compared to dogs, although it does not tell us definitively that this is the case. Cats also have longer lasting memory capacity than dogs, another metric of intelligence. We've talked about the socialization of domesticated animals, dogs and cats, so let's briefly dive into what social behavior and cognition looks like in a non-domesticated animal, the otter. There are 13 different species of otters, which shows a wide range of different social behaviors. Some live in sociable groups, while others are territorial and somewhat solitary. Two of the more sociable species, smooth-coated otters and Asian short-clawed otters, live in different types of social groups. While the smooth-coat clans hunt and forage together and coordinate to protect against predators, Asian short-clawed otters live in larger groups and are thought to forage individually. So what does social cognition look like for these otter species? Researchers studied the social learning ability of captive otters. This tested whether otters would mimic the behavior of others in a difficult food-finding task to learn how to do it properly. The scientists found that only smooth-coated otters were able to learn from other otters, not the Asian short-clawed otters, despite them being sociable. This is just a snapshot into the mind of the social otter, but let us briefly compare it to dogs and cats, who exhibit at least some amount of social learning. They learn from humans, a totally different species from them. Domestication has made it so that they can still recognize us as trusted members of their group, even though we look and act completely different from them. And as a result, they can learn behavior from us. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this and want to stay updated, like and subscribe. Join the community and share tips and ideas on our website linked below. Bye crew, see you next time.